Previously on Man Children of the Atom. Oh my God, it's everywhere. They're all together. Everything's converging. It's every storyline.
Naked bullshit nostalgia. Yeah, take this.
I don't know what it is. They're
It's
very
like,
prominent.
it does look like Dale from King of the Hill.
How much do planes cost? How much do fucking airplanes cost? Because they go through them like tissues.
No, I mean, does Mr. T like say like get over here, suckers? Is there anything like
Adieu, but with a silent X because it's French.
you
I
know
don't
what?
know.
That's perfect.
That sucks though. All right, and welcome to the second episode of Man Children of the Atom. I'm Matt.
I'm Brett.
And tonight we're going to be talking about the second episode of X-Men 97, Mutant Liberation Begins.
Initial impressions, what you think of it?
So going back to when I watched through the first time, I really went from episode 1 feeling like hopeful with 2 being like, oh, they did it.
Yes.
They're doing it.
Yes.
Not just they can do it, they are doing it. And I was thrilled with this episode. It held up great on the rewatch as well.
Yeah, I had the same exact reaction where it was like, oh, that first episode was a good episode. I think I said it on our last episode, like made contact, like just also a solid base hit, just nailed it. And then this second episode comes out and hits a home run.
Yep. Brings that runner home.
My jaw, going back to the first time I watched it, my jaw was on the floor like the entire second half of the episode. Like I just couldn't believe how it just kept getting better and better and better.
Yes.
Like this is one of those episodes where as we race towards the conclusion, every minute is better than the minute that came before it. You know what I mean? It just keeps getting better. Like you have a great fight scene, you have a great lead up to not just the battle, but Jean and Wolverine.
Yes.
And it just keeps building. Like the fighting is really good and the animation is really good. And the end, like the way the characters are just being who they are. They're so well matched to when you read the X-Men. Like this is what they look like in your head almost. Like I feel like they're just so well observed. And then there's a great speech, and then there's the great climax of the whole episode, which we'll get to. And then like even the resolution has such like heart to it and is so earnest in treating this as like this is a big deal. There's no joke here. I mean, like there are jokes, but like they don't detract from the weight of the episode. And then we end on another cliffhanger. It's like, man, they just came after you and they just kept landing blow after blow after blow. I think it's maybe my favorite episode of the entire season because like the craft of it announces this show in a way where it was like, well, no, now you have to watch the rest of this.
It really does.
It puts Wolverine's claws in your head and says like, Bub, you're going to watch the rest. Because it also sets up a lot, like in that cliffhanger and just the episode in general. It's, what a great episode.
Yeah, completely agree. And I love what you said because we acknowledged it last time as well. This show knows how to use humor and how to not use humor.
Yes.
It does both, and it does it at appropriate times.
I think there's a really great joke at the end that I'll talk about when we get there. But I absolutely agree with you. Because a lot of times, and this isn't just superhero movies now, I just think it's a trait in a lot of movies, whether it's a comedy or a rom-com or whatever, even some horror movies, like a darker movie, we have this syndrome where we're like, well, why tell one joke when we can tell 3 right in a row and they're all really stupid? Yeah. It's like, no, just like a nice, cool joke. You know, like some jokes are just like, they're like amusing in like a cool way, like something Indiana Jones might say or Han Solo might say.
Yeah.
Just like a nice little line. That's all you need. And it helps, like that builds character like we see throughout this whole cartoon. Like, just give me one joke. You don't got to do this whole big stupid thing where it's just like, we're winking at the audience and then we're saying like, oh, this character that everybody knows.
Yeah. When there's jokes, especially if they're out of tone, it's just a big reminder like, hey, you're watching a show. Like you lose your immersion if it feels discordant with
it feels like, and this is so I'm a big wrestling guy, which I which I think you dabbled in wrestling, but I don't think you're as big of a wrestling guy as I am.
I wouldn't even go that far. I
Oh,
couldn't not be
wow.
aware of it in the cultural zeitgeist growing up when I did, being around other boys at school and stuff like
Sure,
that.
yeah.
Like I heard a lot about wrestling. I really never watched it.
Wow, that's crazy to
Yeah.
me. It's a lot of fun. I mean, it's also, yeah, it has its problems, but it's a lot of fun. So, like, the reason I bring that up is I sometimes in my mind, like, equate where Hollywood is at and where wrestling is at.
Go ahead.
It feels like both industries accepted, like, hey, kayfabe has been broken. And so, what that means for someone who
Yeah.
doesn't know anything about
Yeah.
wrestling,
Yeah.
kayfabe is the
No, I know what
idea
it is.
that,
Yeah.
oh, you do? Okay, I'm sorry.
But Brett, tell the people.
Oh, of course. So kayfabe is sort of this carny idea of like sell the illusion. Like everybody knows it's fake. They know the game is rigged. They know that people aren't really in danger or whatever, but they want to be fooled.
They want to believe.
So you play it real, they play it real. This would even go back to where like in old school wrestling, the heels and the baby faces, the good
Yeah.
guys and the bad guys, would have an unwritten rule that they never rode together because they would, they have to drive hundreds of miles to different shows.
Sure.
They would never go out to dinner together. They would stay in different locker rooms. They would stay in different hotel rooms and all that. That was like the extent of kayfabe. And in Hollywood, it feels like now they're like, you know, you're watching a movie, so why pretend like it's this magical experience
Yeah.
where you just get lost in it? So there's a lot of meta jokes and there's a lot of breaking
Yes.
of the fourth wall, which I'm not even against. Like I enjoy,
No.
like High Fidelity is one of my favorite movies, and they break the fourth.
Sure.
Like that's a big part of that movie is breaking the fourth wall.
But that serves to draw you in, as opposed to like shove you out of being immersed.
And what this show does that movies don't do is it goes to the length to like set things up, even though you know what the conclusion is going to be. Whereas I feel like a lot of movies, they're like, well, you know this character's going to die, so you don't going to feel anything for him. Like we're not going to make him a real character, or like, well,
Yeah.
you know these people are going to fall in love, so we're not going to show you the courtship. In the next scene, they're just going to be making out. And it's
Oh
like, well,
yeah.
no, like that's what makes me care about this stuff. And this episode, I mean, especially when we get
Yeah.
to another scene in it that I'm going to lose my mind over, says like, no, we're going to take our time to give speeches. We're going to take our time to have like, yeah, somewhat cliche conversations, but they matter. Like this is the glue that binds the entire world together.
Speeches. I mean, we're going to revisit this idea, but you talk about speeches. There's some good ones, but even just in terms of some of the lines throughout the show, there's some good ones. Magneto in particular, fucking banger after banger coming out of this
It
guy's mouth.
really is. It's like the Beatles, like number one hit after number one hit. Like, he is just rocking you. I mean, I guess it's a very dated reference. I guess Taylor Swift or whoever is the biggest thing now. Beyonce.
I mean, in my house with my daughter, Taylor Swift is the big thing. So good on you. Nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, as a man who's nearing his 40s, I don't know anything about anything anymore.
Yeah, we'll just get into it. So the episode begins, or before the episode begins, actually, I like to acknowledge the theme song. First episode they showed us, we got this. We're going to deliver that feeling. It's going to be like you remember. We've updated a little bit with the new. But then the second one of the season, they switch out some clips. They switch in some clips. Now Magneto gets a title card now. He didn't have one in the previous one. So it's demonstrating with the second point on the line, like, and you can expect that we're going to be changing this throughout. So it's a reason to keep paying attention. Oh, what are they going to show me this time? What little clips are they going to embed this
That's
time?
a great point. Yeah, it's so easy to skip it. And on rewatches, I've skipped them a couple times. I've had the rewatches one like 2 or 3 times this week because of being interrupted by work and kids.
I get that.
But yeah, like it's like, no, like you enjoyed this song, sit through it, listen, and we'll reward you by giving you an extra thing every once in a while. So it's a great idea.
All right, we get through that. We have a good time with that, and then our cold open is it Coney Island specifically, or just a Coney Island-esque setting?
I thought she said Coney Island.
Yeah, it probably is. I mean, that's one thing with Marvel is they set their stuff a lot of times in a mix of real and like additional fantastic settings, but so much of it's in New York specifically.
Yeah, it makes New York into like a playground in a weird way. And that's very fun about it. It's like you can just imagine this world where like they're just heroes randomly flying around at all times.
Yeah, right.
Or swinging or whatever. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Coney Island, but maybe even though I've watched this beginning like 5 different times this week, I can't remember.
And we get reporting on the scene is Trish Tilby and her first, what I thought was just going to be a quick cameo, but actually she becomes a character in the season, which is great. I remember her from reading the comics and Beast's relationship with her. So I was like, oh, right. We're coming right out with these references. Don't have to beat us over the head with them. It's baked into the world.
Yeah, it's great. And it builds out that world more. It just
Yep.
makes it feel like the thing you are watching is like a real place.
Yes, exactly. And we get this disaster scene, which I gotta say, I know it's just an animated scene, but they did a good job conveying the sense of worry and anxiety and danger around this Ferris wheel accident, which could have looked goofy, but like you feel worried for this kid. You feel like bad for this rescue worker who's trying to save him.
Exactly. Like this is a thing where I wrote down these crazy Ferris wheels are always breaking off. Like it's such a cliche thing. For like, oh no, the Ferris wheel, and now it's going to be a giant wheel that rolls through the city. This like this fantastical nonsense that The Simpsons were mocking in the '90s, and yet is still a
Yeah,
thing.
right. Was there a real disaster like that? Like a World's Fair or something? Did that get embedded in the cultural zeitgeist because it happened
Well, it was the Ferris wheel was debuted at the World's
in
Fair in
Chicago? Yeah.
Chicago, and so I think somebody just saw that and immediately that idea was
I
born
know
out.
what wheels do. Wheels roll.
Yes, exactly.
I've seen a wheel before.
You've built a
Yeah.
death trap,
Tell them,
Ferris.
Margaret. Tell them I've seen a wheel before.
Yeah, but to your point, like they play it like a real movie. It could have felt like Twister,
Yeah.
but it felt more like Backdraft.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If people get that reference, whereas like, no, this is some scary shit. And then we get when the whale falls,
Yeah.
and we get Trilby in the front, and she's like crouching down as the whale falls behind her. I thought that was very Lois Lane Superman,
Oh,
and like
yes.
even though obviously this isn't, it just had like such a comic book look to it that I
It did.
really appreciate.
Like the framing of it and
Like that,
everything.
you could see that happening. Like you could do that in a movie, but I feel like no modern movie has done that shot, which is like a character we know, a thing falling down. It looks like it's gonna hit that person, and then like somebody saves it. Somebody blocks the building from falling down.
Hmm.
I feel like we don't save a lot of people in modern superhero movies. I feel like
Fair.
we tell them to run, but then like they're never really in that much danger.
Fair.
We just punch each other. We don't save people in hero movies. But yeah, so we get that Magneto flies in, saves the day.
Wearing the dumbest fucking outfit.
Yes, with an outfit that
Oh,
you are
we've
furious
talked
about.
about. I don't want to be furious. I know it is accurate to the period of the comics when he tried being a good guy for a while, but it's such like a. He's like digging through his closet, digging through his dresses. Like, what would a hero wear?
Yes.
What do I see those idiots traipsing about in?
They'll put a big M on my
Yes.
chest. It's like
I think I saw the Mimic do that.
it's almost like it's a mockery of superhero
Yeah.
outfits in a way. It's Magneto's commentary on the superhero fashion.
Yep. And then he, of course, uses his powers to right the Ferris wheel and save the day, and everyone's shocked. Magneto did something heroic.
I love how he is a household name
Yeah,
in
right?
this world. Like, I guess he's basically like what Bin Laden was, right? He's just a well-known terrorist to people.
I guess to a lot of people, yeah. But so the Ferris wheel that broke is made of metal. We know that because he was able to fix it. Do you think this was a staged heroism?
Oh,
Did he give it the tug?
He was just like hiding behind like a sand dune, and he like just fiddled his finger and everything started to come undone. And he's like, "Oh, don't worry.
I've been waiting near this Ferris wheel for weeks. They assured me it was structurally unsound. Guess I'll have to speed things up."
I saw the Cardi who made that Ferris wheel. This could have possibly last more than a week."
That's right. He was using mutant meth. Anyway, yeah, but Magneto saves the day.
They mentioned Trish Tilby mentions that he was the leader of a failed mutant rebellion.
Yes.
I was wondering if there's a specific storyline in comics that can or in the cartoon from '92 that relates to. Do you think that's the asteroid M?
It could be. I also think that was an extremely rushed plot of the final episode.
Oh,
where it's only because Xavier is dying that Magneto leaves the rebellion and comes to his bedside or whatever.
Oh, interesting. I don't remember that. I have to watch.
It's from the bad season, like after they couldn't get the animation company back, and it was.
And they thought that it was going to be canceled, but then they ordered one more season to cut everybody with their pants down, basically.
Exactly, yeah. So it wasn't a good episode. It was kind of a weak finale on the series, but I think that was the plot of it.
So we have Magneto here. The world is questioning if he's what he's doing.
Yeah.
We go back to the mansion where people are kind of giving him a hard time.
I think even before that, though, he's a hero again, but instead of to humans,
oh yes,
he shows up in the Morlock tunnels.
Yes, he does.
And the friends are down in they are just looking for mutants to persecute. They went all the way to the under the sewers.
Well, speaking of great lines, you mentioned that Magneto's throwing heater after
Oh,
heater. He's like, "Oh, you don't even give them the indignity of your waste,"
yes.
and he puts a lot of English on human. He kind of says it like a
Oh, big
slur
time.
almost.
Big time. And he flings that one Friends of Humanity person against the wall with the metal. But then the
A lady friend
a
of
lady friend of
humanity.
humanity, yes.
Yeah.
She's not my lady friend, she's my special lady, man. And then he just kind of flicks that last metal piece when she's going in with the hate speech stuff again.
Yeah, Calypso calls one of these guys a pig, which is nice.
Yeah. And doesn't he brings that little metal mouth closure back way later in the season. He's been working on it. He's been
Oh, he
practicing
does.
that one at home in his bedroom.
Oh, but yeah, listen, with those powers,
That's right.
he's played with metal
He's
before, to put it
he's
lightly.
got a mannequin. He just practices flicking metal across his mouth. So then go ahead. So then they're back at the mansion.
Oh, actually, before
Yep.
that, he says to Newt, "You shall never be afraid again,"
To Leech.
which is gonna play. Oh, Leech. I'm
Yep.
sorry, Newt.
Yeah.
Yeah, Leech. I'm thinking of
Yeah.
aliens.
Aliens. Yeah.
Yeah, he says to Leech, "You should never be afraid again," which of course is gonna be mirrored
Oh.
later,
Yep.
in episode
Yeah. The
5.
show does a good job with the setups and the payoffs, and they're not immediate. They let it be simmer long enough to be a callback.
Yeah, and
An
almost be
echo. Yeah.
forgotten. A lot of the stuff I didn't notice until now. X-Men are debating Magneto back at the mansion. They're not happy with him. We get a great waste bin of history reference in its original form as a dustbin of history. Do you know this reference?
Yes, I've heard it, but I can't place it. What is it a reference to?
It's with those no good commies. It's I think Trotsky said it about his fellow communists that he
Oh
betrayed.
yeah. I mean they
Whichever like the
yeah,
Bolsheviks
it's
won
a
over
bit the
the
other way
whoever the
around. He
hell.
was the one more betrayed.
Well, he then got
Yeah.
betrayed later. Yeah, but he said it after one of the
Yeah.
betrayals. But anyway, but again, it's just that great job by the team of being like, this is an explicitly political show. Like even the references we're using are referencing sort of famous political moments in
Yes.
history of like heightened tension and of betrayal and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And Magneto with a great line here. He goes something about like, oh, Charles and his human mutant coexistence. And he's like just he it's like such a joke to him. I
Oh,
like this is something
this
that they really get with
this
Magneto.
man waltzes into this room of people who mostly hate him, and he is just dishing out shade left and right. He is having the time of his life with it. And he has the gall.
But
This man has the gall later in this very scene to utter the words, I did not come here to sow drama or discord. It's like, you've been doing nothing but that with a big smile on your face for 5 minutes.
but you know what though? They really get like you have to play it that he's like an
And
arrogant
that,
guy.
it's good. I'm relishing it.
Yes, it is
I
great.
don't want them all to
It
be
is
perfect
great.
people. I want this kind of stuff. I want people to have personalities with rough edges on them.
And it's because it's so easy to sort of play him as like the
Yeah,
stoic leader who's just like really angry. But they do give him some like sassy attitude in this episode
they
and this
do.
season that I really appreciate.
Absolutely. Yeah, it works. It's really good. And we get he's being intentionally provocative. Cyclops just taking the bait left and right on it. Like he cannot hold back from being passive aggressive, almost outright aggressive in his responses. Let Jean scan his mind. She's like, no, honey, no, no, you can't do that. Like, this Jean Madeline really.
Yeah, he's ready to break some Geneva Convention laws.
I
He
gotta
doesn't care.
say, when you think about like they show us these different personality types in leadership, right? We get the way Xavier tries to lead, we get the way Magneto leads, we get Cyclops and the way he approaches as a leader, the rough edges. Pretty much every time we have Storm opine in any sort of leadership capacity, like she's the one that's on the money. Like they set up the competing dreams of Xavier and Magneto and who can be the leader. I mean, it's like just fucking listen to Storm. Just listen to her. She's got it.
They do a good job, and this is obviously true in the comic book as well, where she's sort of very
Yes.
wise, but like not in
Oh,
a soft way. Like she
yes.
she commands. So it's like she never sort of sacrifices that aspect of her character. I mean, that's why she's a
Agreed.
great character. It's not just like who can make the biggest
Yeah.
things go boom. Like she's just like a very well-written character. I really enjoy her in the comics and in the show. Rogue, we get her slyly asking for Magneto to get a second shot. She's like, "Oh, we
Oh,
all have
yeah.
dirty pass.
Yeah.
Don't worry about him. Let him into the house."
The first hint, and we didn't know on the first watch through where they were going with this. And they really do go into this fact that, yeah, at points in the books, they had a relationship.
And they do a great job of slyly implying
Yeah.
that it was sex. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
later on it's more explicit, but like even like he's
Oh
tugging
my
on her
God, yeah.
glove and like
With Rogue, that's like third base. Slightly tugging at her
yes.
glove.
But I mean it's very weird to say this about a cartoon, but like it's drawn or it's animated in like an
Oh,
almost
yeah.
sensual way, like the way he tugs the glove.
Quite.
So I was just amazed. I literally wrote down or I typed up, I was shocked they hinted at the sexual
I
past of
know.
Rogue and Magneto. Because it's kind of the only way to interpret him
Yes.
tugging on that glove.
No,
It's a
and it's a
sexual
way this
tug.
show in its reincarnation has they know their audience has aged and they've grown up too. They would have a
Yeah.
much more sanitized version of this in the original. Right. We used to be friends, we used to be allies. No, they really went for it in this in 97 here.
Yeah, it was very
Agreed.
refreshing. The next scene is what I think is the best scene of
Is this the Gene and Storm scene?
yes.
Yeah. You go first, go ahead.
So listen, I think it's one of the best scenes in the entire season. It does open with some sweaty dialogue recollecting the Phoenix Saga.
Yep.
One of those things where it's like, there's no easy way to do this, so I just cram it in there because we need to create context for this. But this is one of those moments where I was talking about at the beginning of this about how like it just kind of keeps building. It
Yes.
comes out and it's like it's a good opening, right? We get the clash of X-Men and Magneto, and the ball is rolling because now he's shown himself publicly to be a hero. So like the world is
Yep.
kind of figuring out how to deal with that. So the plot is building behind everything. So we get to this scene, and there were like legitimate directorial choices that I think are incredible. So after that recollection of the Dark Phoenix, Jean starts talking about like, oh, I need to talk to you about something. I have to talk to you about something. And we just see Storm pat the bed, and then we do a
Yeah.
close-up on her eyes. And it's a thing where these are like panels in a comic book,
Yes.
but also at the same time, very evocative of the characters and like the gestures and like how familiar they
Yeah.
are with each other. Again, I hate to be a jerk. The movies don't do things like this.
Oh no, they don't.
Like this is too artistic for a $150 million movie. That's insane. And
Yeah.
I don't mean that in a way where it's like $150 million movies should be ashamed if they're not doing stuff like this because it costs you nothing and it takes 30 seconds, but it means the world to the story.
I agree with that. I think an advantage that both comics and television share is you don't have to be as vicious about trimming everything out and
Yes.
only leaving the big beats. There's time to see these relationships happen. You get your big moments, you get your smaller moments too, in a way that makes you care about the big moments.
Big time. And just like that little gesture of like patting the bed and we show that and we show it's like it's maybe 3 or 4 seconds of like no dialogue in a cartoon and no action either, which is again
Yeah,
like usually you would never
unheard
see
of.
something like that. Another nice touch throughout this scene, it happens twice. Storm knows what Jean is trying to say without Jean having to say it. She like says it
Yeah,
for her. She says like,
yeah,
"Oh, you've wondered if you don't want your kid to be a mutant."
yeah.
And there's a time before that. So even like again, like that part of like we don't have a ton of time to show this relationship. So how do we show that they're very close? We have her pat the bed. We have her finish her sentences, and it's just like such an easy way of cementing that relationship.
And the actual, the themes and the meat of the dialogue here, this desire of a parent for their child to not have to endure the things they endured, to not have to suffer the things that they suffered. And like how many, whether it's sexual or gender minority, racial minority folks have had this feeling like, why can't my kid just be normal and not have to suffer in the same ways that either I did or I can see happening for them? And it's a really sincere and a touching sentiment to get into.
I mean, it's the thing that X-Men has always done well, which is like we're talking about very real
Yeah.
and difficult things, and it's like on the nose, right? We're not trying to hide it at all,
Yep.
but because we're earnest about it, it works. It doesn't feel corny. And I
Yeah.
actually wrote to your point, I said again, probably really important that a gay black guy wrote this speech. Of
Yeah, I mean, but not just him, right? I think there's
course.
multiple people probably in that writing room who this is why these characters and these shows resonated with them when they were watching and reading and now get to be a part of creating it or
Yeah, and
recreating, adapting it, all of it, all of both.
and it's also interesting that Jean says it. And again, we talked about this a little bit last week, how this like plays into her character, even when they don't really talk about it. Another reason why Storm knows about it and then gives that speech is she's
Yeah.
also a black character as well. So she
Yeah.
says, like, she doesn't have to be told. Like, she says, yes, you wonder what it would be like if your kid was normal. I wonder that too. And
Yeah.
again, it's like this, we're having a conversation without having the conversation. And again, it's not subtle, but it's done with a real level of talent and
Yeah.
craft that like you don't care.
And I mean, to me, it's kind of evocative of whether it's the Twilight Zone or Star Trek,
Yes.
where there's this kind of proud tradition, I think, of using a fantastic or a science fiction setting to talk about the present in a way that doesn't raise as many hackles, raise as many defenses. People can be more open to actually examining it because it's slightly divorced from the real world issue that's a hot button. But now it's like, but what if we tell the story with mutants, with aliens, with whether it's like, well, okay, now I'm more willing to have an open mind coming into it.
And it's funny. I feel like people they look back on the Twilight Zone, which is one
Yeah,
of my favorite shows of all time, and they say like, "Oh, I mean, so many of those episodes are so on the nose."
yeah.
But guess what?
That was the point.
We're still talking about them. So like, obviously that didn't hurt it, and I think that
No,
that mentality is adopted here, where it's like, listen, who cares if it's obvious, even though it's incredibly obvious, it's better done than what we do
oh,
in a lot of modern movies, where like we literally just say the thing.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like,
They're showing that. Yeah. What's the saying about right science fiction? It's never actually about the future. It's about the
yes,
present.
yes,
Right. Here's the things that this show is turning the mirror on and showing us. And
it's
I love it. And we see it illustrated also in the dialogue here. This theme that's going to keep coming back through a lot of this, and it's always been present in a lot of X-Men stuff, of like the idea of found family,
yes, oh, big time.
finding the people who you really thrive with.
Yeah, and I think it does, obviously in this season, that story is mostly embodied by Sunspot and Jubilee, and like the
Yeah,
youngest one sort of bringing in another young person.
sure.
I think it also, speaking of like the found community thing, it is interesting that it doesn't romanticize that because it also shows like, well, it's complicated because like check out Rogue and Magneto, which I think is the next scene that happens.
It is the next thing that happens.
It's like, yeah, when you have these tight knit communities, like there's obviously going to be people that get together and have complicated pasts, and then that's
Oh
going
yeah,
to be troubling because these people don't agree, they don't see eye to eye, and so it really again just builds out that whole world of like, no, there are a lot of complicated things happening here between characters. Yeah, it's just one of the reasons why I think the show just understands the X-Men, because it's not just about the fighting. It's like you have to
right.
make these people real and have them have real relationships.
Yes.
Again, it's just something that I think gets lost a lot.
Yeah, no, but that's a huge part of the draw. That's a huge part of why people cared about these characters for so long. So yeah, you're right. The Magneto. We've talked a little bit about the Magneto Rogue scene already, but I think Rogue making the point here to Magneto, who does come in with that kind of he's stirring the pot a little bit. He's acting above, but she's telling him like you can't demand their trust. You have to earn their trust, and like I like that he's willing to hear that from her.
It's great. And you know what? I think what was also great, and I'm just realizing this now,
Yeah,
is that something that this show does a really good job of is we just spent the last whatever 20 minutes really, or maybe more, really talking about how great the emotional part of this episode is and the
yeah,
relationships and the character stuff. And now I'm looking at my notes, and from here on out, it's kind of like balls to the wall, not action, but like it's much more propulsive. We
yeah,
get the
yeah.
trial,
Yeah.
and so I almost feel like our conversation, if we're lucky, well, is going to mirror this because we've been very like serious and like
Gonna launch.
this is great and it's so much better than everything else. And now it's going to be like, and now there are a bunch of UN soldiers on the front lawn
Oh,
of the mansion, and they've got guns. And boy, oh boy, do we have to talk about this massive cock up on the end of the UN.
oh,
They
oh.
come here with guns, and man, Val Cooper comes out and she's like, Magneto, you idiot. These guns don't, the magnetism doesn't work on these guns unless they got power. She thinks she's the hottest shit. And whatever idiot organizes operation forgot, the helicopters are made of metal.
Helicopters. Yep.
I hope somebody got fired for that blunder. What a
Oh,
massive, massive mistake.
yep. And I love the way he doesn't just like crush them and implode them, the way he turns the blades
Yes.
in a way that's just like, I could end
Yes.
all of you like that. I am
It's
choosing not to.
It is the quite literal sword of Damocles hanging over their heads.
Yeah.
Except instead of a sword, it's a blade propelling however
Oh, yeah.
500,000 miles an hour.
Vroom. Yeah. We'll just a little off the top.
A line I know from Cyclops where I was like, it's like maybe we rethink this thing.
Go.
He goes, "We don't lose our cool when the good guys show up." It's like, well,
Yeah.
listen, these are
Oh boy.
yeah, rah-rah soldiers, but still, let's not pretend like they've never made a mistake. Let's not get
Yeah.
a little. Let's not. I wrote. Let's not get overzealous here.
Let's not they don't make some mistakes this season.
Very true.
So yeah, he willingly lets them cuff him,
Hmm.
which there's something the way they shot this, we're like, yeah, the cuffs, and you're thinking like, it's what are handcuffs gonna do to Magneto?
Yes.
But then he lets them put the inhibitor collar on him, which is the first, and I think maybe for the other characters, see like, oh, he means this, right? This isn't feigned. He is allowing them to actually take his power away from this. He listened to Rogue.
Just going back to the visuals, right?
Yep.
I don't think anybody says anything, and we see the handcuffs go on, we see the inhibitor go on. So it
Yep.
is just a way of like even little things like that. It's like, well, no, we're like it's reinforcing the world and reinforcing these characters. Like he is helpless right now.
Yeah.
And so I think it is a great segue into the trial of Magneto. And I was
Oh my
wondering,
God.
Matt, do you think that this is the Nuremberg trial of the world, like of like the modern world? Like, is this the
In
equivalent?
this continuity.
Yeah, or is it more like, oh, that was the closest equivalent, like OJ? Because is the media coverage serious, like the Nuremberg trial, or is it absurd, like the OJ trial?
Well, no one rioted to break into the courtroom and murder OJ and the judges, right?
No, I
It's
don't think so. I
people
may have missed
are
that when I was when at 5 or
yeah.
whenever that trial was happening.
No, I mean this world of the show of the story is up in arms. They are not treating this isn't popcorn entertainment for them. This is for people who feel this way. They are watching. It's probably like when they had the trial of Saddam.
I
But even
wasn't
then,
really.
he wasn't seen as like an active threat. It was like
That's the
you're
thing,
going to
though.
get
No,
what's coming
he
to you.
didn't have any power. Like what? I guess it would be like if Putin, like that would be like our world, at least in the West. Obviously, in the East, it's a very different idea.
Yeah,
But
I guess.
yeah. So we get this trial.
It's interesting that we're not, or where our brains are not going, are the literal trial that just happened about a literal former president, where it's like, yeah, no, that doesn't have the gravitas of this.
Oh no, certainly not. Even unless whatever you think, certainly not. Because even as serious as things can get, it's hard to not be like, this is a fucking clown show.
Yeah,
It's just the world is
yeah.
raining
If it was the
clown
trial of
shoes.
Mojo, maybe that would be the parallel. But no,
Yes,
this is the trial
yes.
of Magneto.
Oh my God, the trial of Mojo. Now that you can have a lot of fun with. You want to talk
Oh,
about a Twilight Zone episode? We're just kind of saying it with the barest of sheens
oh,
over this.
that's
Then
right. They
yes.
grill Major Domo on the stands for 12 hours straight. Spiral winds up in contempt of court. Like it's a whole thing.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So as you say, the trial of Magneto, which I believe it does in the 80s, I think. Wasn't there a trial of Magneto with the purple costume, with
Yes,
the
because the
cover with him
cover,
in
yes,
cuffs?
in
Yeah.
cuffs. Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
So
I
evoking
might
it
actually,
there.
I might have that one. But there's a great line here. I wrote Bitter Wolverine. Yeah, he goes, a bunch of people wishing Magneto was dead. I don't blame him. Is
Yep.
basically what he says. And it's like,
Oh,
wow, he's Wolverine's like, yeah, I kind of wish this dude was dead.
and you know what? We talked a little bit last time. They didn't make it the Wolverine show, right? Wolverine,
Yes.
in a lot of episodes, is more of a supporting cast character, which lets him be here with these zings. Like he gets to be unreasonable, so whatever stuff like that, because we're not following like his hero's journey thing here.
Yeah, he gets to just kind of be the grumpy dad on the couch, just
Yeah,
yelling at the TV,
yeah, right. Literally at the TV in this team. Yeah.
throwing a bear can or two. So we also get to see the executioner for
Yep.
the first time as he's building this gun. And I was going to take a moment here
Carl Denty.
where I think we decided,
Yes, let's take a visit to the X Files. Brett's prepared for us some information on the first comics appearance of this character.
yeah, so we get the executioner in X-Men Annual number 17, I believe the
Yes.
number is. This is one where a couple different things happen in this. The executioner has the first segment, which we'll talk about in a second. After that, we get this is also the longest one, and it
Yeah.
has the most X-Men in it. And it's actually because there are two competing things happening at once, and it's got kind of a sweet ending to it. Although, as you
Yeah, there's an
mentioned,
A and a B plot.
yeah, it has an A part, and as you mentioned, and also a really savage final panel.
Oh yeah. Which who's the artist on this? Could you have that in front of you?
I do not. I looked for it, but it doesn't have because it was
It
the
doesn't.
annual. It didn't have like
Yeah.
it like more neatly written out.
I remember the art because I had this issue when I was a kid too. The art really stood out to me because it looked different from the art in the other X books I was reading at the time, and I was like, there was very like if I remember like bold lines and angles and stuff like that in a way where it felt very vivid. And that this
Oh,
scene, the final panel that you're talking about with Colossus, for sure. Oh, you're looking up the.
yeah, so we have the three stories are The Gift Goodbye, Of Kings and
Yep.
Queens and Promises, and Bishop Pinup.
Oh, and a bishop pinup. Perfect.
And so The Gift Goodbye is penciled by Jason Pearson,
That's the one.
inked by Mark Farmer, and written by Scott
Yeah.
LaBelle.
Okay. Oh, great. Yep.
Oof, Chris Eliopoulos, I can't say his last name, is the
Ooh,
letterer.
okay. But yeah, I just remember the art style being very effective for kind of the story this was telling.
Like he's almost like ethereal in a way because that he has that cloak. So it really helps
Yeah.
to show like his speed. It's a very innovative way to show his speed.
And then there's something like evocative in the mask, like a bird of prey kind of thing going on with it,
Oh, it's a great
which is
costume.
cool.
It's a great
Yeah.
costume.
I like that we saw this guy in the previous episode and they gave no indication this is who he was.
Exactly, yes.
Anything more about that issue, that annual issue?
Yeah, the second story of Kings and Queens and Promises.
Oh yeah, that's with Fitzroy, right?
Yes, it's like a backdoor pilot for the upstarts. And
Oh yeah.
Fitzroy recruits a young lady. And
Sienna Blaze, I think,
yes,
right?
you. So what is your history with this book?
So at a time when I was still fairly early on in collecting comics, so I didn't have that many. This was one of the X-Men ones that I got because it was one of the books I owned. I read it a lot because also it's like the art was very compelling. The story, the narrative was kind of confusing because I was like, what? The dream world, right?
Yes,
Mastermind's
it
dream
goes on
world
for a
with it.
long
And like,
time.
yeah, before they actually reveal that's what's going on, which maybe should have felt obvious, but I was like, wait a minute, who are these? What is happening here? Why is it Ice Masters X-Men? I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah,
I liked it, and then I remember as I like got better at collecting, getting confused because I was like, no, wait, what order does this go? Annual? What's annual? Where does that fit in the numbers?
and they make collecting these things annoying because they're
Yeah,
they're included in some things, but not in other things. And it depends on the edition you get.
yeah.
It's to this day I don't know how Marvel has all gotten their act together and just been like, here is the X-Men series and do it in like one neat thing,
Oh,
but it's just a pain in the ass.
love
Anyway,
that.
so this story is interesting. He comes out. He actually is like not as extreme in the comic. He says he only kills mutants who have also killed. And so
Yes.
he kills this mutant Tower who I don't know this guy.
Yeah.
You know,
He was an X Factor villain really, really early on, like when the original X-Men were the first X Factor.
interesting. So he is in this Central American village supporting some
Yeah.
sort of revolution that is not specified. And
Yeah.
he starts getting a little handsy with the barmaid, and then
The
this
waitress, yeah.
guy gets cooked up like a sausage.
Huh.
He
Yep.
executioner just like puts a hand to his shoulder, and you turn the page, and it's just a crispy critter.
Yeah.
And this sort of sets him on his path. We then get, like you said, this really weird fantasy world where it's like 70% making sense, but 30% not making sense is one of those things. Speaking of the Twilight Zone, it's like one of those ones where like reality's a little bit off and then it's a little bit off again.
Yes. And I hesitate to call which one's the A plot, which one's the B plot, because we're introduced to the executioner part of the story first, but then it's Jason Wingard and Jean Grey story that has like the emotional weight.
And it's also driving it forward. I mean, really, he's
Yeah.
because we don't really learn much more about the executioner story in this, other than he is
No.
sort of an avenging angel for humanity in some ways. Like that's his sort of
Yeah.
how he's sort of depicted.
Carrying what I think they call like a greatest hits of the X-Men foes
Yes,
technologies,
yes,
GR stuff, and what Xenox and all the
yes. It's
foes that they fought. Yeah, Sentinel Tech, I think, is mixed in there, which they weave into this episode.
very much so. Yep, here it is. Shi'ar, Xenox, Sentinel Mark, and it says that he's not human.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the driving plot here is that Jason Wingard is dying.
Yes. Mastermind.
And
Yep.
he has sent a letter to Jean Grey, and she
Yep.
has come with Bishop and Colossus and Archangel and Storm
Yep.
and Iceman, and they're going to figure out what's going on. A Storm is in the lead of the team at this point. She says Bishop, Jean Grey, and Iceman go into the room, and Jason Wingard suffers some sort of cardiac arrest, and boom, they're all in the world with him. And as he's dying,
Right.
it's one of those things where if you die in the game, you die for real. If
Yes.
he dies, they die. And it's just this real sort of emotional story about them together. And on the outside, Executioner is coming to kill Jason Wingard. He knows where he is, and that is his next
Yes.
target. So Storm and Colossus and
And Archangel.
yes. I have to
Yeah.
sort of keep him at bay. So it's one of those, it's not a groundbreaking story, but I think it's done really well.
It is. And I remember the effect of this character who I didn't know at the time, had never appeared in the books before. I was just like,
Sure.
oh, here's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
villain in this one. I was like, oh, he kind of fucks up Archangel and Colossus both. It takes Storm to not beat him, but like drive him off, basically.
Yeah, he disappears. Yeah, the last page of this, first story is Colossus like crumpled on the ground.
Yeah.
The guy had
Half.
he's kind of cut. He's not in half, but
No, but he's like half flesh, half metal. Like he's stuck.
yeah,
Right?
it's
Yeah.
very weird what it looks like, but he's been sort of cut. It doesn't really make a ton of sense, but because the Executioner has a sort of lightsaber that he hits him with, but we don't see that.
Yes.
But it's a good.
Yeah.
It was a good issue. And then the other one, the Fitzroy one, is just a backdoor pilot sort of. It's not bad. He's a funny character because he's very arrogant. I always enjoy
And I
this.
think looking back at this character, this Executioner character, in the books, something they did was they tried to tie it into actually much earlier history of the X-Men, which like for a while before Claremont came in and kind of changed what it was, or the X-Men had an FBI contact that they would get their leads on. Fred Duncan was the guy's name. And they tie this in that Denty was that guy's partner until he died. And then he claimed all of these little memorabilia, all these little souvenirs from the missions that now he take them and now he's using them against the X-Men. So as his partner respected them, he hates mutants and is ready to kill any mutant who toes the line.
Interesting.
So the backstory is a little different on this show's version of him. Obviously, he's more of just one of these Friends of Humanity guys who happens into some really good armament
and puts up a great fight, as we're going to see in a little bit when the assault happens in the courthouse. So the trial of Magneto begins. He gives a great speech. X-Men is one of those comic books that the movies did this a little bit, but like you need to have some pontificating in your script, I think, for it to truly be an X-Men movie or an X-Men show.
I think so. And he has some good zingers in here with I like the moment he really nailed it around the your sound bite indignation. Like it's
a great line. And again, it's he's saying it to a guy that is like a kind of a caricature of a Southern politician.
Yes. Lindsey Graham was not available.
No.
Show this time, but,
and also, Lindsey Graham, his voice lacks gravitas, I would say. Not really gonna work.
Oh well, I'll figure something out.
Oh, this is something I came up with. Seeing this speech in this episode, as much as I love it, one thing that I don't know how it makes me feel, I think I'm just going to state this fact: the X-Men is kind of a naive property because it kind of believes in optimism. Like it.
Well, yeah,
and
kind of. Although this season of this show kind of makes you question the very thing you're questioning. Is that optimism justified in the face of things that occur?
I suppose that's a good point. I guess so. The optimism is at its height in this episode. So maybe that's a better way to look at it.
Okay.
In this episode, we have Magneto putting himself on trial, giving himself up, sort of being this very trusting person, or trusting mutant, I should say. I don't want to insult him. The UN wants to kill him. Basically, like it's almost like implied that this is going to be like the
outcome is predetermined.
Yeah, exactly. And then he gives this big grand speech and it resolves it. So when you think about like the X-Men, right? This is sort of like the end of history of Professor X's dream, right? He got the guy that wanted to destroy humanity to follow his path and through an impassioned speech get the UN to agree with him. Like this is the Charles Xavier wet dream.
With a speech that made them pause. I mean, what convinced them is a little more than just a speech, but
sure, he's threatening. Yes, he's threatening their lives. Sure,
but
and also, still a speech.
But seeing the kind of the proven point of the hatred that Magneto has had to deal with his whole life play out as now the crowd starts to want to come for them too.
Oh, and that's a great line. He says, "You gave a monster trial. Oh, to
Yep.
play by the rules, and still they come for you."
I have
Great
that
line.
line too. Where
Great line.
he's got that little Magneto smirk for it.
He
He's
does.
enjoying the irony.
We then cut through this
We cut.
tension
We
with
do.
a great, I
Oh,
guess this would be the B plot, is Logan taking Jean to have her baby.
yeah.
He
Hey,
goes,
can we?
he's coming. He's here. Who?
Yeah.
The baby. Great.
Yeah. No, the delivery is what. So that's an okay joke that was delivered fantastic.
Yes, her, the baby is
Yeah.
very, she
The
really lands it.
baby. The delivery is great. And who's coming? Apocalypse.
Yeah. Which is like, you're
Yeah.
not taking out Apocalypse movie. What are you thinking?
Yeah. No. But yeah, the baby, and like it's like there's an unstated "you fucking idiot"
Yeah.
like
Oh,
title in that line.
and then the keys in his jacket hit him, which I think is a great touch, a great
Yeah.
button on that joke.
It's great. And then he drives her, as you say, to the hospital. And maybe it's just the way they chose to draw it. It looks like he's being intentionally the worst possible driver. Like he doesn't look like he's just going fast and adapting. It looks like I drive on the sidewalk because I have an excuse.
No, I wrote in this, he is prepared to murder those people to get her to the
Oh,
hospital.
he's
Jean
kind of
has to
sad he didn't get to.
telekinesis move them out of the way
That's
because
right. Well, she's giving
Wolverine is not slowing down. In
no.
his mind, this is his berserker rage. He's like, I'm getting her to the hospital, whether you move or not.
That's
This
right.
guy's ready to kill.
And I hope you don't.
Yeah, yeah. And as they're racing, this begins our assault on the courthouse, which maybe I noticed this the first time around, maybe I didn't, but it's like, oh yeah, this is very obviously a reference to January 6th.
I mean, that's kind of
And
there's parallels, let's say.
maybe I like just sort of like waved my hand at it at first, but for some reason tonight I was like, oh yeah, this is like very obviously a reference to that.
Yeah, I think maybe.
So they come crashing in, all these
Yep.
protesters, all these heroes, depending on how you view them.
Oh boy. True patriots.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And then Executioner kind of with them, but also kind of just using them as
Yes, as a cover, kind of.
for his real objective. And yeah, they show off he is effective at fighting the X-Men. He carries inhibitor collars on him so he can toss them on. He's manages to devisor Cyclops, I think.
He's a little overpowered in this, I
A
would
little
say.
bit.
He takes out like 3 people.
And his dialogue sounds like people I've met, some in real life, unfortunately, some online. It's the whining.
Yes, I wrote this down.
Normal people have tough lives too. You don't hear us whining about them. Like, oh boy, you didn't have to modify this dialogue very much.
Which is why I was surprised with the annual. He's written as kind of likable, whereas in this, it's like, how do we make this guy in one line as hateable as possible? Because he looks badass. He looks badass. He's a great fighter. We need him to be a threat. But how do we give him dialogue to make him as hateable as possible?
Yeah, he's someone who blocks a lot of people who disagree with him on Quora. Like he's got some opinions that are well trod.
This guy, hey, listen, this guy's a free speech absolutionist for a lot of reasons.
100%.
For a lot of reasons.
Yeah. And then we get Morph kind of showing us that Morph will be the cameo engine in this whole series.
Yep.
And a sequence where Morph fights as Lady Deathstrike and Colossus and Psylocke. It doesn't wind up winning, but really kind of just showing off like, okay, with this character, we can bring in all the characters that didn't make sense to include in this plotline.
And it continues to show like, because he died so early in the first series, it was so easy to think of him, especially as a kid, as like weak. Like, oh, he doesn't have a great power. But here it's like, no, this is actually pretty badass. Like he can kind of do a lot of different things.
Yeah, I know there was some. I think the way the show is writing his power set.
Oh, I'm sorry, we're mistaken here. We should be saying their power set.
You're absolutely right. Apologies. Their power set is that as long as the abilities that are being copied are kind of just like physically using one's body, like not like energy protection, not like mind stuff.
That's a good point.
Yeah. They can kind of copy those powers to an extent.
And like we see that with when they are Colossus, the strikes, I forget what the Executioner is using, is like bouncing off Colossus's skin. And so it's like there is a sense of like there is some of that power there, but maybe not as strong as the actual person.
Right.
So it's a great fight.
Yep.
Like I said, takes out 3 people, a little surprising.
Yeah.
While this is happening, we're back in the courtroom, and
Oh,
Storm gets to shut down this politician. She says,
yeah.
"Be silent."
Yeah. Heed
And
my commands and you shall survive. Like,
she,
yep.
and it's just showing like, boom, she just snaps into this leadership role. Just such a
She
badass
really does.
character.
She takes to it.
Cut back to the hospital. We
Oh,
get this prejudice doctor. He drops a "you people" in this scene.
oh, big time.
And Jean again, great voice acting. She goes, "This doctor," puts a lot of
Oh,
emphasis
a
on
lot of
that.
English on that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, with a
yeah.
capital D, doctor.
Yeah, and I guess it's this mix of like it's rooted in fear, it's rooted in prejudice, right? What if I do a C-section and it winds up blowing up my whole ER or something like
Yeah,
that? And it's like
you
that.
people can't control your powers. Yeah.
Yeah, the way that the even smart people will are even more prone to it can readily generate the justifications for the thing they were feeling.
As this B plot goes on, I love how ready they are to kill this guy.
Well, Wolverine's always ready.
That's true. It doesn't take a lot to convince Wolverine to kill someone.
Yeah, and of
He's a
course,
murderer.
if Jean slash Madeline Cyclops is also ready to throw hands at a moment's notice,
Yes.
but this moment where they use Rogue's power instead in this
Yes.
creative and appropriate way, like yeah, she absorbs people's memories, she absorbs their knowledge, she touches a doctor and knows what a doctor knows.
It's a way that they rarely showed her use this in the original series.
Yep.
You're right, it's a fun thing, like you associate it so much with physical powers, but it's the power of the memory as well is really good.
And so Rogue delivers a baby.
She does. And while this is happening, again, another banger of a Magneto line. He says,
Oh yeah.
"Be animals and be
Oh,
caged like
we
animals."
wrote down all the same lines, Brett.
It's because they're all great. And
Yeah.
then, again, talk about how they continually find ways to use the X-Men and their powers and like framing them in different ways. Storm electrifies these pillars and makes like an electricity cage out of it. It's awesome.
Yeah. Oh. And then this is when Executioner gets into the main hall, the UN hall, whatever it is, and his objective, he's going to take out Magneto.
Yeah, it's sort of revealed as like that's his target. Yeah.
Yep. And Storm sees it at the last minute, and Storm takes the hit.
And listen, first off, Magneto, this guy took out 3 X-Men and he shoots Storm and Magneto takes him apart in like 2 seconds. He just
Oh,
completely dominates this guy.
yeah. But the Storm realizing that the effect of this shot is what is actually taken from her when I think I can't feel the wind or something like that.
I wrote this down.
Yeah.
Her losing her powers in the scene again.
Oh,
It could have been they could have downplayed it.
no, it could have been a plot point. It was a character moment.
So the line is, "The breeze is gone. I cannot
Yes.
feel it, nor the moisture, nor the air.
Yeah.
What has he done to me?"
Yeah, she's heartbroken. It comes across in the delivery of the lines, and this would be like losing your sight. This would be like losing your hearing.
It really is, because like just building that connection is like, no, she feels the weather in a different way. Like she has a sixth sense, and now that's been lost.
Yeah.
It really is just a way to say, like, again, this is another moment where every minute is better than the minute before it. And like you think like, oh, what a great action scene. And then we get this heartbreaking moment, and you're like, how could this get any better? And then Magneto rips the courtroom out of the building and
carries
flies
it to orbit, basically.
with this tribunal, the executioner sort of lashed to this symbol
all
of
but
justice.
crucified magnetically crucified, I guess.
And it's like, well, how could it get any better than this? And then he gives a second speech. This episode is off the hook. It's incredible.
Great. It's great. And the oh shit that Dente's experiencing, where he's like, he's planned to take down the X-Men, and he's gone 4 for 4 on taking down X-Men. And you're right, Magneto's just like the gloves come off, and it's just, as you say, in seconds. Like it's a no contest. This guy bet against the Harlem Globetrotters moment.
Yes, yeah, no, yeah. Well, this is his, in the parlance of our times, this is he fucked up, and now he is finding out.
He found right the fuck out. And it's good. You feel the tension of, is this going to push Magneto back over the edge? Because as the audience, you're like, it's kind of pushing me over the edge.
Well, especially the speech that he gives here and what we've seen throughout the episode, where it's like, you won't even let the Morlocks have the swords.
Yes.
You put me on trial, and guess what? These people that you're defending, now they're going to come for you, because even the offer of justice makes you an enemy. And so it's like, it's been doing, which is has become an internet joke, which is Magneto was right.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
it
yeah.
makes you feel that.
Yes.
You know, he keeps trying to do the right thing. He says, if this is the high road, never again. Another great line
Oh,
from him.
yep. What must we do to be good enough? This thing about right. This was the X-Men. This is Xavier. They've done nothing but try to turn the other cheek and try to protect you and everything. And what that wasn't good enough.
Yeah, it's great. Again, I keep writing down his lines. He goes,
Yep.
bigot, ingrate, sycophant,
Oh, sick of
worm.
it. Yes, it's so good.
I mean, and this is one of the things I thought when I watched this for the first time was it felt like an old school Hollywood drama, courtroom drama in a way.
Yeah.
Whereas like we're giving these big speeches and we're changing people's minds with the power of not just reason but compassion. And it has like a real like you would almost expect the music to swell here. And as
Yeah.
like some golden age actor gives a big speech. The music is also, I wanted to point out, the
Oh,
music during this is great.
completely agree. And he makes the choice. He's going to put them back down, and then God, what are some of the lines in there? To accept that this is a shared world and we have every right to live in it too. Something like it's not. He's kind of saying like we don't all have to get along. You just have to accept that we live here too.
Yeah, and you know, again, it's just like this is Professor X. If he was watching this,
Yeah.
would be hard as a rock because this is what he's like. Oh my
Oh.
God, my former enemy is now giving speeches like I would give speeches, and it's working. It's
Oh,
working. I mean, listen, the storm thing sucks, but
yeah.
this is working.
Lalandra, wake up. I just got the biggest psychic stiffy of them all.
No, yeah, he was having a great time after this.
Oh, I'll probably.
So this is the moment that really like clicked into my brain. They call it an insurrection. The news report about the attack in the courthouse. They call it an
Yeah.
insurrection. And then
Good
at the
catch.
mansion, this is one of those the joke that I mentioned at the beginning of the show. Cyclops hands Magneto a cup, and Magneto goes,
Yes.
"Poison?" And he says, "Dark roast." And it's just like a
Yeah.
perfect little joke, and it shows off like this playful little relationship that they have. Great little moment there.
I think it's the type of joke that what's the old saying? The characters in a good comedy don't know they're in a comedy, right? The
Yes.
the jokes work when they feel true, when it doesn't feel like a wink at the audience.
It's literally 3 words, and it's a quick, easy little interaction. Love it.
Yeah.
We get the Beast. Beast is we don't see him a lot in this
Oh,
episode, but he's in his lab coat and his
bearer of bad
glasses,
news.
and he has to do the very dramatic. He takes his glasses off and
Yes, he
he
sure
rubs his
does.
nose, and then he gives his very unfortunate prognosis here
Oh
that
yeah.
Aurora's powers are probably not coming back, and we get a
Yep.
great directorial moment here where Jean is trying to comfort her, and her voice is just
Yep.
drowned out by that high pitched ringing.
Yeah.
Loved it, loved it, loved it.
Yep. And then we get kind of the storm monologue kind of thing happening, playing over the montage of her exit. You're gonna call it the scene. I'm gonna
Yes, I
say
am.
it. I'm gonna get there. The most effective shot in that whole montage is when she's packing her things and there's a thunderclap outside her window and it startles her and she realizes that she didn't feel it coming.
Yes.
And
Amazing. And
yeah.
again, I mentioned on the first episode, I'm going to mention here again, the goddamn sound design. And
Ah,
that
it's
lightning
so good.
clap scares me sometimes.
Yeah.
I've watched this episode like 4 or 5 times. Each time I'm like, God damn it, that's loud. Like they
Yeah.
really try to scare you. It's a great job. And you mentioned the intercutting here as Jean reads the
The
Storm's
goodbye
letter.
letter. Yeah.
We also did intercuts when with Magneto's speech and Jean giving birth. So
Yes.
they're really
True.
upping their
Yep.
cinematic game here, where it's just like we've got the voiceover, big emotional
Yep.
moment, and we're sort of mirroring it with two things. The sort of the rebirth of trust between Magneto and humanity and the birth of Nathan Summers. And then here with
Yep.
Storm giving her a goodbye speech. Very, very great.
And then it's at the conclusion of that we get this set up for episode 3.
Another episode, another cliffhanger. Yes.
Yeah.
Another Jean Grey appears.
And they set us up, they give us another little taste morph there, kind of filling the comic relief role away.
Yes.
Not always in a goofy way, but in this one where it's like, Storm's gonna come back. Don't worry. Ding dong. See?
Yeah, there's I don't mean this in a dismissive way.
Yeah.
Sort of setting Morph up as sort of like the mascot of the team, of like
In
trying
a
to
way.
cheer people up, trying to make
Yeah.
people smile. Like sometimes Gambit is like that, sometimes Nightcrawler is like that, but here
Yeah.
Morph is more embodying that. But there's usually a
And
jokester on the team.
specifically Wolverine.
Yeah.
Always want to cheer up Wolverine. And I like that does actually call back lines from the old series. Morph was the only guy who could ever make me laugh. And
Yes,
it's like,
that's
here we
true.
get to see it. We get to see Morph make Wolverine laugh
Especially
sometimes.
in this montage at the end where Morph turns into Sabretooth and brings some
Yeah.
beer and and they
Yeah,
start chasing each
throws
other.
what beer and chips at him and everything.
Yes, and
Yeah.
then they start sort of wrestling
Oh,
by the moonlight.
and the Wolverine's got a big smile when that starts off.
Yeah, wrestling by the moonlight is a lesser known Van Morrison song.
Ah,
Is
there
the
you go.
joke I was trying to say there.
I'm sorry for stepping on your
No, it's
joke.
okay. We're all over the place tonight. So that
Oh, our big reveal. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Take it home.
Jean Grey appears. I got to talk to the X-Men. Scott appears. They draw him in a very weird way where it's almost like he immediately assumes that's Jean. I feel like that's my read on his reaction. He goes Jean, and it's
Yeah.
almost like he just believes it. He's like, "Oh my God, I've been sleeping with an imposter." Like that's the vibe I get from him in that moment. I don't know why.
I mean, he's not wrong.
That's true. He just knew.
Do you think there's a part of him that like looked and was just like, jackpot?
He's too much of a Boy Scout.
No, you're right.
He would never. Not the Scott Summers I know. No, sir.
No,
Not
sir.
the kid who jumped out of that plane holding on to his brother with one parachute. No,
Yeah, right.
sorry. He's a one woman kind of guy.
Well, you say that, and yet I think in across multiple mediums now we see that might not be technically true.
Well, he does. Corsair is his father, and Corsair
Yeah,
is a notorious pussy hound,
yeah.
an
Let's
intergalactic pussy hound.
intergalactic. He'll go into another dimension. Another dimension. But yeah, no, I mean Scott Summers has a type.
Who else does he date throughout the series? Am I
Well,
forgetting?
Gene, a clone of Gene. And in the comic books, after I stopped reading, but Emma Frost, which I always felt
Oh,
like,
right.
why are they doing that? But another telepath.
Forgot about that. I think that's in Josh Whedon's Astonishing X-Men.
Yeah, that's I think where it starts, maybe around there. Yeah, but yeah, that brings us to the end of the episode, right? The reveal that there's two genes.
Yeah, and it's going to lead into the Inferno storyline. I knew that, and I think
Yep.
most people that know the storyline knew that as soon as it happened. And I was honestly shocked. I was like, "Oh my God, they're going to do Inferno."
Yeah. Oh, me too. I felt the same way because you had just loaned me the compilations, the crossover compilations. Inferno was one of them. I remember reading that and everything that's in it and all the provocative artwork and it's like expressly involving like hell and demons and everything. Well, I guess limbo, other place, whatever. But like it's hell, it's
Yeah,
demons.
yeah.
When they set this up, I was like, oh, they're actually let's see what they're gonna do with this. I don't know how all of it's gonna translate.
And God damn it, it just goes back to my theory of like every minute is just better than the minute before with this episode
Yeah,
because then it's like it ends. The last thought you have is, "Holy shit, they're going to do Inferno." What
yeah.
an episode this is. 10 out of 10. Two thumbs up. Four
Yeah,
bananas. Everything.
that yes, a whole bunch of bananas, the whole thing. It was great. It was exciting, it was moving, it let us know the characters, it moved the plot, it did everything you could want from an episode. It belongs in the S tier of all X-Men
It does, I
media.
think. It does.
All visual adaptations. This is S tier.
Great stuff.
Great stuff. All right, and to wind it down,
Oh
we talked
boy,
about doing this.
we did.
We've prepared is a very loose term. We prepared a feature, an unnamed feature, where we're going to play around a little bit. And this is a heads up challenge. We are going to go back and forth. Did we say we're going to share? We're each going to take turns naming a code name of one of the X characters.
Yes.
The challenge would be for the other person to give the real name.
And I feel like I need a handicap for this because I feel like you're going to kick my ass.
I don't know. I guess we're going to find out.
Yeah, we're going to find out.
I accept. What's the handicap?
Well, let's just play. Let's see where the
We're not going to be
takes us here.
dicks. We'll start the ball rolling.
Yeah. So why don't you go first since you thought this up?
All right, we'll start low and slow. Cyclops,
Scott Summers,
okay.
Iceman.
Bobby Drake, Magneto.
Now he has a lot of different names.
I'll accept any of them, or for bonus points, all of them. Yeah.
And then Magnus.
One of the canon names. Yep.
Yep.
Later revealed, I think, retcon to being an assumed identity after he fled the camps.
Oh, I've never been able to follow the
Yeah.
Eric Lencher, Magnus. I just gave
I've
up
read
trying to
up
figure
on
out.
it. Yeah. Max Eisenhardt, I think, was his name given at birth, is the way
Oh,
they
really?
do
I
in
never
the
even
comics
heard
now.
that one.
Yeah, it's complicated. But you got him, so go ahead, come back.
Storm.
Aurora Monroe,
Yes.
Juggernaut.
He's related to Xavier.
Yeah, actually, that relationship is a hint to the name. The name was kind of on the nose for the first name.
I forget his first, but his last name is Xavier, right?
Oh no, Xavier was Xavier's mother's name and Juggernaut's stepmother's name when his
Oh,
father married her for her
no.
money.
Sean Cassidy is somebody else.
That is someone else.
I don't know. I don't know
Yeah,
Juggernaut.
think of the example of like a bad brother.
Oh, Kane.
Yeah, yes, yeah, Kane Marco.
Kane Marco. Good bad guy name.
It is a good bad. Like I said, it's very on the nose. He's the bad brother.
Kane Marco, you can even see that in like a pulp neo-noir novel, something like
Oh,
that.
100%. All right, do you want to throw one back at me or
Sure. I want to try and think of one that's hard for you.
please insert hard for you jokes here?
I keep thinking of them. I'm like, nope, I know that person's name. Nope, I know that person's name. All right. Omega Red. Does he have a name?
Yeah, I want to say it's Rosovich, I think is his last name. I think it's like Arkady Rosovich, something
It
like
is
that.
Arcady. It is Arcady. I don't know for the last name, but
Yeah.
Arcady is definitely his first name. Damn.
Yep. Polaris.
She is also she's Magneto's daughter. Oh, Lorna
Yep.
Dane.
Bingo. Got
Uh Nightcrawler, because I know he's your favorite.
it. Kurt Wagner. Gambit.
Remy Lemieux.
Uh,
Havoc.
LeBeau.
Oh, LeBeau.
Havoc is
Oh
Al.
no. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it is LeBeau, not Lemieux.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the hockey player.
Yeah. Mario. Yeah. Havoc is Alex Summers. Alexander Summers. Blob.
Oh, I don't know Blob's name. I
Ah,
always hated Blob. He was
yeah.
hate's a strong word. I never cared for him.
That's fair. Fred Dukes.
Fred Dukes, that's right. I
Yep.
should have known that.
Yep. All right, so we might bring this game back. It's usually if people enjoyed hearing us just say names at each other.
But there, you
Uh,
know what? Good names in the X-Men universe.
I will say I like a lot of the Marvel names, broadly speaking, and I learned something years ago, which was so many of them are alliterative. Your Scott Summers, your Peter Parker. It
Sure.
made it easier for like Stanley and the rest of them to remember. It was in like a mnemonic device.
Oh,
If they
really?
could remember one, they would know it's okay. It's the same letter.
I That makes sense. I
Yep.
love old-timey stories about like, oh, the newspaper back in the
Oh,
day. I'm
back in the
such a
bullpen.
Yeah, oh, I'm such a whore for it. Like, give me the
And I told Ditko, I'll bring that up to the desk for you. Boy, I learned how to erase his name quick.
Yeah, no, Stan brought a lot of papers. He was very nice about
Yeah.
walking those papers over to the editor's desk. Don't worry about it.
You've had a long day, true believer. Have a seat.
Hey, don't worry, Jack. I'll take this
Yeah.
for you.
All right.
One thing that I'll just tell us, we can cut this later.
Yep.
Have you ever heard the story about Jack Kirby? How he would sometimes get, because he fought in World War II, and he would
Okay.
sometimes get racist letters about being Jewish, and
Oh.
people would call up the Marvel offices and do like hate calls. They would
Oh
like,
my God.
and he had like a bat or something in the office, and he'd be like, "I'm gonna meet you downstairs," and he would rush downstairs and try and fight these guys.
Oh
Jack Kirby
man.
was a fucking maniac. I love it.
Wow. It just goes to show you.
And there was another, I don't know if he was a writer or an artist, but there was another Jewish guy in the office. And Jack would be like, come on, we're going down. And he would grab like a crowbar and go down to fight these Nazis.
Oh, I love that.
It's a great story. I wish, give me that book, just like the day-to-day in the Marvel bullpen. Where did you go to lunch? What did you eat? Did you ever see the guys from DC? Did you talk to them at lunch? Like, just give me that book. I mean, I guess Cavalier and Clay is that, which is why it's
Okay.
incredible. Have you ever read that?
I don't know that one.
Oh, Cavalier and Clay is a novel by Michael Chabon. Chabon? Is that
Yeah. Why do I
he wrote
I
some of
recognize the name.
He wrote some of Picard,
Okay.
the TV show Picard. But anyway, so The Adventures of Cavalier and Clay is basically what if in the real world there was another comic besides Marvel and DC, although DC at that time was something else. So it's like
Yeah.
it takes place during, I want to say during World War II, but it could be a different war, but I think it's World War
Now,
II.
what's that?
So Cavalier and Clay are these two, I think they're cousins. And one of them goes to live with the other. And they become a writer and an artist and they start their own comics. And
Oh,
so it's about them starting their comics. And then
yeah.
and it's just all about their life. And it's phenomenal. It's an incredible book. I highly recommend reading it.
Say the name of it again.
The Adventures of Cavalier and Clay.
Okay, thank you.
My throat is getting raspy.
Let's go, bub. So that'll do it. That is episode 2 of X-Men 97, Mutant Liberation Begins, and that is episode 2 of Man Children of the Atom. We will see you next
time. Oh, we gotta work on that. See you later.
Our theme song was written and recorded by Cheer Captain. Find Cheer Captain at cheercaptain.bandcamp.com. To contact Matt or Bret, email us at manchildrenoftheatom@gmail.com.